With a 20-year reputation for clean business, Matt Glynn at Code Property Group is the first choice for real estate on the Sunshine Coast and surrounding areas. I've known Matt for a very long time from a personal level and professional level, and he is an excellent real estate agent. He's professional, he holds a high level of integrity, he presents incredibly well, and has a huge amount of knowledge when it comes to the real estate industry. So if you are in the market to buy, sell, or simply get a valuation and find out more about your current property, then give Matt a call on 0404 315 066 or matt.glynn, GLYNN at codepg.com. You won't be disappointed. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Paul's Body Engineering Podcast. I'm going to run solo again this week. When I come up with topics, and if it's not something that I've had a discussion with a client or even my beautiful wife, sometimes it's just me in the car, just thinking. Have you ever been driving? And sometimes you do your best work when you drive because there's no distraction. It's just you and the road, and you tend to have these sort of clear moments of thought, of consciousness. And I thought to myself, I just literally clicked over 10 years since I first launched Paul's Body Engineering, and a lot has happened in that time. And I thought to myself, you know what? It's great to reflect back on everything that, not only that I've achieved from a positive standpoint, but everything I've had to overcome, and also everything that I've had to learn. I've done a podcast. I think my very first one was why I became a personal trainer, but this one I'm going to talk about the failings, the headaches, the hiccups, the hurdles, the learnings that I've had to overcome, because I really didn't have any sort of mentorship when I first got into this space. It's a challenging industry to really break into but like any business, it takes time. So you've really got to have a lot of nous, a lot of support, and also a lot of drive to make a success out of it. And, obviously, I guess I would consider myself successful now. But at the same time, looking back, geez, I had some challenging periods through that 10 years. And I thought it'd be a great opportunity to sort of reflect, chat about it, and just give you an insight into what a successful personal training or coaching business has to go through to get to a point of success. But it's also relevant to all small business. Anyone who starts out as a sole trader can relate to this because, you can't just create a business, create a brand, put a business card out there and all of a sudden just expect business to come to you. No one knows you exist. No one knows of your name. No one has ever heard of you and knows what you do. So you've got to work tirelessly and ridiculously hard to create that brand awareness, and then also the confidence in your brand and the confidence in you for people to come and go, yep, I'll give you a go. And I learned that the hard way through, the early period of my business. But, as I've titled this podcast, From Humble Beginnings, I started out as a bootcamp instructor. So what I did when I first got my qualifications was I did it the right way, is I approached council, I got the approval, and ironically, when you set up a bootcamp outdoors, you have to be 100 metres from any place of residence. And how I know there's plenty of bootcamp operators out there that do not abide by that. And some of them don't even have council approval. They just go from park to park and hope they don't get busted. But I did it the right way because I thought that was the appropriate thing to do. And I got approval from council. I found a spot near where I lived that was 100 metres from everywhere in a big park. And then I went about marketing myself. I went to the local community groups. I went to the local newsletter. I went to the local businesses. I did mailbox drops. So I really pushed hard in terms of local community and to try and generate interest that way. I offered a special, which upon reflection was probably a little bit silly, but your typical boot camp's about $10 a visit, or you can obviously buy packs of 10 or whatever and get a discount. I offered the first week or 2 weeks, I can't remember what it was now because it was 10 years ago, as $5 a session. So I'm setting up. I've bought some equipment. I knew how I was going to run it. I was going to do a circuit style based on time, play music. I was offering free protein shakes at the end of the session too, as a little extra value. And I marketed. I think I was running 2 a week at the start, and I wanted to sort of take full advantage of the start of the week and the end of the week. And upon reflection, it was a bit dumb because the start of the week was good, but Mondays people struggle to get going on a Monday morning first thing. So I was running a boot camp at, I think it was either 5:30 or 6 a.m. every Monday morning, and then for some dumb reason I thought, well, people have knocked off for the week. Why not take advantage of a Friday afternoon? And I did not know at the time, but I was very naive, and I thought, oh, there's got to be an opportunity here because no one else runs a boot camp in this whole area on a Friday afternoon, so I'll do that. So 5 p.m. on a Friday. How dumb was I? So my first boot camp, I set up, I hung around, waited, and I had 2 people show up. So granted, I got 2. Like, many people probably start their first boot camp and don't get anyone. So I got 2. But that was probably as exciting as it got because I got the 2, and then it did eventually build. I think the most people I had over, I'm pretty sure I ran it for about 12 months. The most people I had in one session was about 13. I had a family rock up once that were mum, dad, and then 3 kids, so that obviously boosted the numbers. Outside of that, the average number was 5 or 6. So look, I wasn't really covering my time in terms of $10 a head. But it was a wonderful experience. Upon reflection, which is the point of this podcast, I learned a hell of a lot. I learned how to market myself. I learned how to instruct people. I learned how to keep people motivated. And I learned also that this business is going to take time. It was a real slap in the face for me because I then realized, right, this is going to be a grind. I've got to be in this for the long haul because it's not going to be easy. People just don't turn up. If they don't know about you, they're not going to show up. But you also don't know what you don't know. So at the time, I was very naive. I just assumed people would come to me. And look, I had done obviously a reasonable amount of groundwork in terms of marketing myself through the appropriate channels. But again, it's about consistency and awareness over time. And if you don't put in that time, people don't know. And then obviously with the clients I did have, I would constantly say, bring your friends, bring your family members, make it competitive or make it fun. And they did do that from time to time. But then the times that I'd selected were clearly an obstacle for many people. Some people want to finish up on a Friday afternoon and go have a beer or go to the pub or take their family out for dinner. They don't want to come and work out in a park. Oh dear, it's a funny thing, but that was my start. Now, during that 12-month period, I secured a position at EasyFit Health Club as well, big box gym. So that was my first exposure to personal training in a gym sense, in a commercial gym environment. I'd obviously been training there for a while, but and it made sense to approach them and say, look, do you mind if I come on board as a trainer? Now, obviously, most people know the arrangement as a personal trainer is that obviously you keep 100% of your income that clients pay you, but you have to pay rent to the gym on a weekly basis. Most gyms give you 4 weeks rent free. Some give you a little bit more. There are some other arrangements out there where they do splits and things like that, but EasyFit was very simple and very straightforward. So I appreciated that, and I got to work. But I was still keeping the boot camps going because I was still of the belief that it would grow. And I've seen very successful boot camps where people would have 10, 15, 20 people turn up to a camp at any one time. So I thought to myself, in the early days, right, that's what I want. I want that to be a success, and then I also want to balance that out with some commercial gym time as well. But I came to the conclusion with it, after some discussions with my wife as well, that it just wasn't working out. Like I was turning up some mornings, I'd get 1, I'd get 2, and then through winter, it was an awful experience because it's cold, it's dark. You got a 5:30 a.m. boot camp. The ground's wet. People are not motivated to get outside unless they're truly committed. And given I was still new, I just hadn't built those relationships. So through winter, it was tough. So I did make the call eventually, and I thought to myself, you know what, like I'm training here on a Monday morning. I'm getting 2 people turn up. I'm making $20. I could be at the gym, and I could be earning double or triple that potentially in a matter of a week. So because I've got the exposure, right? There's, a big box gym has thousands of members. They see you every day. it makes more sense to be in that environment. So I made the call and I committed to that. I cancelled the boot camp. Ironically, I've still got the flag in my gym today, just as a subtle reminder of where I started. But I moved into the full time into the box gym, and that was probably the best decision I made, because from there the trajectory was always going to head in the right direction. But I still had plenty of stumbling blocks. Like, there were weeks where we struggled to pay home rent, like rent where we lived. There was a period early on where we had to move back in with my parents because I just wasn't earning enough money. But I had to make sure that I paid rent. Fortunately, at the time as well, the owners of the gym back then knew I used to work in construction, so they offered me a bit of an offset where if I did some handyman work around the gym, they'd offset that time against my rent. So I took full advantage of that and made sure that I utilised that accordingly, and did the odds and ends, fixtures and fittings, and ensuring that all the gym equipment was safe and all that sort of stuff. So that certainly helped out a lot. But through exposure to different people over different times, I learnt a lot. Like, you can learn so much from an individual when you work with them for a period of time, and that's why personal training is personal. It needs to be. The individual needs to trust you. You need to trust them. They need to trust what you're saying, what you're delivering, how you're going about it. And most people now are pretty savvy in making a decision when they hire a trainer. They've done their research. They've looked at references. They've looked at results. They've looked at experience, qualifications, etc., and they make a decision. So early on, when you don't have that experience, where you've got limited qualifications, you don't have a big client base, people are taking a risk on you based on your personality alone. So, every time someone did approach me or reach out to me, I was truly grateful, and I gave them gold standard service. And now, for any client that's listening right now, I still give you gold standard service, but back then it meant a lot more because I was still starting out. But I also had to be very careful about how I train people, because I was a bodybuilder at the time, right? I was training to be a bodybuilder, so I'd learned how to train with high intensity, high rep range, push my body to the limit every session I did. So my limitations in terms of training knowledge was just that. I remember one time I got a new inquiry, and I did have a really good system where I was getting good leads, and one of them, one of the new leads that I'd got, I offered free sessions, like one free session. And this lady came in. I did a session with her, and I pushed her legs. I think she might have asked me to train legs, so I trained her like a bodybuilder. Now, the poor girl had DOMS for 4 days, but she'd never experienced DOMS before. She didn't know what it was. And anyone who's had significant DOMS in their legs knows that you struggle to walk, you struggle to sit down, you can barely get on the toilet. It's really uncomfortable. Now, she didn't know what it was. She thought I'd broken something, and she kept pestering me, going, "Well, what have you done? Like, why are my legs so sore?" And I kept explaining to her, "Look, it's DOMS. It's delayed onset muscle soreness. It will pass over time." But after the DOMS passed, never heard from her again. So I'd clearly pushed her too hard and scared her off. So, lesson learnt: don't push very early clients. Just work them over enough so that they understand the level of intensity that you want. They understand the movement and the technique, but you don't obliterate them. Like, that's what I did. And unfortunately, that poor girl never ended up being a client because of that fact. But she still stayed in the gym, and I did see her. So she clearly wasn't deterred from training, which was a good thing. So that was obviously a really steep learning curve in that regard. I remember other situations where I had clients that I was able to learn from, not only the positive situations, but also a lot of negative ones. Like, you have to go through a lot of crap to be successful. You've got to go through a lot of failings, a lot of negativity, some abuse, people challenging your integrity. It's all part of the course. I remember one lady started with me. I think she paid 10 sessions in advance, I have a feeling, from memory, or she paid a chunk in advance. But then she wasn't coming to the sessions. She was cancelling last minute. Now, fortunately, I had a vague cancellation policy in place. It wasn't very good, but based on the learnings I'd had from my certificates, and obviously speaking to other well-established trainers, I put it in place but it wasn't very good, I must admit on that. So when she wasn't letting me know in advance and I was there ready to go, waiting for her, I messaged her back one day after I think 2 cancellations in a row, and I said, look, that's fine. I completely understand that you couldn't make it today, but I'm going to have to withdraw these sessions from the amount you've paid for me. Well, didn't I cop abuse for that? And look, you can understand both sides, right? You can understand, like, if there's circumstances beyond your control that you can't make it, that's okay. I get it. But at the same time, if you can give me 24 hours notice, I could fill that session with somebody else, so I'm not losing income. But she did not like that at all. So she ripped me a new one on the phone. Then she called the gym and spoke to reception and complained about me there. Fortunately, the guys behind reception were completely supportive of me because they were all trainers as well. So they understood the situation and they supported me. But again, that was a learning experience. So I tightened up my cancellation policy. I actually got a lawyer to check over it to make sure it was very clear, very concise, and it wasn't just something I'd scribbled together. So again, another learning experience. But at the same time, the only way I would have established that is through that experience. So while it was uncomfortable at the time, it was a necessary thing that I had to go through to better my system and better my paperwork and administration and better me as a coach and a trainer. Now people are very much aware of the policy, the cancellation policy. And plenty of my clients now, if they cancel last minute, they forego their money. And they're happy to do so because they understand that it is my livelihood as well. And I really appreciate that. And that's come after time as well. Come after time and come after and obviously building that level of trust. So, 12 months in to the big box gym experience and obviously setting myself up there, I was probably breaking even. I remember doing my cash flow multiple times, and you'd pay your bills or pay your rent and things like that, and there'd be very little left over, and we were struggling. It was a challenge. Some weeks I couldn't pay tax just because we needed to eat. These sorts of things really put things into perspective. It's why now it's a great opportunity to reflect. So it took, I estimated a little while ago, it took about 18 months for me to actually make a profit where I could pay myself, where I could have money in the bank, where I paid all my bills and there's still some left over. Now, I wasn't making huge amounts of money by any means, but it was enough. And it was finally a relief because through that 18 months, I'd had multiple conversations with my wife thinking, God, should I just pack it in and go back to construction, or should I look for another job, or subsidize what I'm doing now with another job? And a lot of trainers do that. The average turnover of a personal trainer in a gym is 6 months. That's today. That's current. And the reason being is they can't stick it out long enough because they don't see the income. They don't see the long game. They think it's just all going to happen. And that's kind of why I've started doing fitness business coaching, because I believe through the experience I've gotten and the failings I've had and the gaps in my own systems and business, that I can help others. I truly believe I can help others progress a lot faster in their industry, in their space, and advance their business further to success in a short space of time. So the turnover is terrible, and you can understand why, because you have to run a business. So not only are you training people on the floor, you're doing the admin, you're doing the bookkeeping, you're doing the accounting, you're doing the marketing, you're paying your taxes, you're paying your rent, you're doing your cash flow. There is so many things to do when you're running a small business. And then you can understand why small business owners work such big hours. It's a challenging experience, especially early on. You've got to put in the time, you've got to grind. And as a personal trainer, you need to be in the gym 5 a.m., if not 4:30 in the morning, because that's when the busy period starts. And then you see that out. And then the next busy period comes in at about 8:30 when all the mums drop off their kids and they come in. And then it goes quiet until about 3 in the afternoon when the tradies knock off. And then it's busy again at that 5:30, 6 o'clock mark when all the workers finish. So you've got to be there all of that time. You've got to be on the floor. You've got to be seen. You've got to be chatting to people. You've got to be spotting people. You've got to be present. They're long days. And I remember multiple times where I'd get home and I'd fall asleep. I'd literally fall asleep on the couch. If I had a big enough gap in the middle of the day, I'd go home and I'd fall asleep. I was that mentally and physically exhausted early on because I just wasn't used to it. Yes, I used to work in construction and I'd have early starts, but I'd generally finish around that 3, 4 o'clock mark. But it wasn't anywhere near as fatiguing as this. Because when you slowly build up your client base, you've got to be on the ball with every single individual. You've got to understand who they are, what they do, what you trained with them last week, the conversation you had last week, where they've progressed, what weights they're lifting, if they've got stress in their lives, what it is, what nutrition advice you've given. It's just constant. And yes, you can obviously keep a track record on programming and take notes and things like that. But when you're training people for 30 minutes at a time, you don't get a lot of time to remember stuff. So you've got to be on the ball. So your brain is just getting overloaded. So I was so fatigued. And it took a long time to adapt to that new way of life for me. But I was loving it. And that was the thing that kept me going was I was loving it. I was loving working with people. I was loving training people. I got my first bodybuilding client, which was so exciting. So things like that were starting to pave way for some success. I remember I put a strategy in place, and actually the reason I did this was because the gym had taken on a new male trainer. So we'd all been sort of established for 12, 18 months, 2 years at this stage. And there were a couple of male trainers. We were all pretty busy. And I knew them all really well. They were great dudes. And then a new male trainer came along, and I immediately felt threatened. And I don't know why. And to this day, I still don't know why, other than the fact that they brought someone new on. And I thought to myself, damn it, this new guy is going to be good. He's going to know what to do. He's going to market himself really well. And I'm going to lose potential leads. So straight away, without even hesitating, I came up with a system to generate more leads. And it was probably the most successful thing I did in the entire time I was in that gym. And that was those, it's called a lead box. So anytime you go into a shop or something, there's generally a competition box on the counter. So you can actually buy them in Officeworks. So I got a couple. I did up a little sign, and it was basically saying that you can win a prize every single month if you drop your name and your number into the box. So I got so many leads out of that, particularly out of the female, because I put them in the toilet, so it was protected to a degree. If you put it on the front counter, it gets lost, someone knocks it. There was nowhere else to put it. In the female and male toilets gave a great opportunity as people were washing their hands or whatever. They look over, they see it, and they go, okay, I'll fill this out. You provide them with the paper, you provide them with the pen, and it takes away the procrastination of thinking about it. And I got so many leads out of that. And what I did was, every time I got a new lead, I'd say, look, you haven't won the monthly prize, but I'm offering you 2 free sessions if you'd like to book it in. And I did that by text message, and it was really successful. I did obviously, announce a monthly prize for someone each month. So I was, very honest about it. But it was a great thing that I did, and it generated so much interest. And a lot of the people that came in for the 2 free sessions stayed with me. And the reason I did 2, not 1, was because through 2 sessions, you've got more opportunity to build a rapport. Yes, it's your time, but look, you've got the available time anyway. So it gave me an opportunity to really develop a relationship, a rapport, some banter, understand where they're at, what they're trying to achieve. And it was really successful. So
experience the difference with Matt Glynn at Code Property Group. With a 20-year reputation of a clean business, Matt is your guy when it comes to all things real estate. Make sure you give him a call now on 0404 315 066.
After about 2 years, 2.5, probably 2 years, I was getting up to sort of that 40 to 50 sessions a week mark, which was outstanding. Like, that's a good number for a PT, doing that 40 to 50 session. 50 is a really good number. I was obviously making good money at that point. So we decided then to but start to buy some equipment for the potential of a home gym. So I thought having a home gym would be a great opportunity to expand, offer more training to people who didn't want to join a gym. And so I started just tinkering and buying a piece here and there. My wife surprised me with a squat rack for one of my birthdays, which was and I've still got it today. I still use it in my gym. And then I just added to that. And then I remember we just moved into a new house at Kawana, and I was on Facebook looking at Facebook Marketplace, and a boxing gym had just advertised that they were closing down and they were selling all their flooring. And I looked at it and went, wow, that's cheap, because a standard 1 meter by 1 meter, 15 mil rubber tile for a commercial space, I think they're about $40 something each. And he was selling them for like 18 or something like that. And I said, hey, Monty, look at this. And she said, go get them. So I drove up there that night. I got all of them, and I brought them back, and that floored out the garage where we were, and it enabled me to start to create a home gym. And then from there, I had a good run of luck. There was a place called Workout World at Kawana that sold commercial equipment as well as home-based sort of multi-purpose equipment, and they were closing down as well. And one of my mates was working there, and he messaged me and said, look, I've got these pieces of equipment. If you're interested, come and have a look, because we're selling them at bargain basement prices. And I picked up a seated row and a lat pull down combo. I think I paid only $500 for it. And then a shoulder press machine as well, all commercial grade. And I think I got that. That might have been $500 as well. And these things normally retail for over $2,000. So I picked up some great equipment there. I continued to buy a bar, some plates. I was just slowly adding to it and fitting it out. And I got to a point where I thought, you know what, I can train people in this. So that's what I did. I started to market myself locally. And I picked up some clients through just good marketing, good networking. And I ended up getting an additional handful of clients that I trained at home. So not only did I train in the commercial space, I also trained at home as well. And it was a really good balance. But I was getting to a point where I was close to 60 sessions a week. I was working Monday to Saturday morning, and I was getting really fatigued. I was getting really tired. And, the online coaching space hadn't really taken off at this point. There wasn't a lot out there in terms of it. There was a few pieces of software, like Trainerize had started up. But there was one that my coach at the time, Leon, had invested in called Recomposer. And I really liked it because it had this algorithm in the background where, the program would be written for you. It would base all of its metrics, all of its loads on your 1RMs. And every time you entered a load, it would then change it based on whether or not you could hit the total volume or not. So it was actually interactive and progressive, and I really liked it. The problem was, in order to use it, you had to go through a qualification process. You had to get certified. So I had to do a course. I had to do a strength test down in Brisbane. I had to do an 8-week dieting period as well to show them that I understood body recomposition. So there was a few hoops to jump, but I did it because I knew the value of it. I knew, rather than writing programs on paper, how good and progressive this thing could be. And that's what I did. And I got qualified, I got it, and I started offering it to my clients. So immediately, in terms of a business point of view, this was an additional service that I could obviously charge for on a weekly basis. So it stepped things up and made things a lot more easier in terms of your income, but also it gave more value to what I was doing. It was probably the best online coaching software on the market at that point in time. It was really progressive, really intuitive. It was excellent in what it could offer. But one thing to keep in mind, personal trainers, like most or individual business owners, don't get holiday pay. We don't get sick pay. So if you want to take a week off or an extended period of time off, you don't have an income. So this was at the forefront of my mind. Every time I remember, I think it was the second trip to Bali that myself and Monique took. Ironically, the one I proposed to her at. But I take that back. Sorry, Monty, if you're listening. The first one was the one I proposed to you at. The second one was our honeymoon. Oh, geez, I better not get that wrong. But the second trip, I remember, I think a couple of weeks leading up to it, I was really concerned about my income for that period of time we were away. I think we were away for like 7, maybe 9 days. So I wasn't obviously earning any PT money during that time. And I was earning some online coaching money, but not a lot. Not a lot to cover rent or have some money left over for us when we returned for food and things like that. So what I was doing in order to make it work was I was contacting all of the clients I had, and I was manipulating their direct debit so that it would carry over 2 weeks, not one. So for anyone that was doing coaching or contest prepping or anything like that was paying me, I kind of split their money up, their direct debits up, pushed some into the following week, so we had some income coming in when I returned, and kept some in the current week. So these are the things I was going through and going the lengths I was going to ensure that my cash flow was adequate enough so that I could take a holiday and actually enjoy it, not stress about not having any money when I got back. Because at this point, I was still living week to week, more or less. And it was, a tough slog, but I also felt that I deserved a break because I was working 7 days a week. 6 days a week. So that was really, really challenging. And as you can see, this is what you got to do in small business. You've got to constantly adapt and evolve in order to progress. So I would just sort of tap the surface of online coaching, and that slowly but surely progressed and enabled me to obviously have some days off here and there and not stress about money as much. So that was a really pertinent time, and once again another learning experience. Then it came to a point where I had to make a decision because my home gym was full. It was full of equipment, in a typical home gym, 2-car garage. It's a great space to set up a little home gym, but I felt I could do more. I felt there was more opportunity, and I had to, have the conversation with Monty again because she's always my sounding board as to what does the next few years look like for Paul's Body Engineering? What does it look like for me?
Are you looking to shed a few kilos, change your composition, improve your relationship with food, increase your strength, or simply just have a better accountability level? Then maybe coaching is for you. I now offer online coaching in a number of capacities, from week to week, fortnightly, monthly, and of course nutrition only coaching. So if you are interested or want to know more, simply jump on paulsbodyengineering.com or simply send me a DM.
Do I keep doing what I'm doing, or do I progress? Do I evolve? And we kind of landed on the evolve thing where we wanted to open up a little space. We wanted to basically rent a shed, fill it out with equipment, and have my own facility. Now, there were a lot of things that were potential hurdles when it came to that space. Firstly, we needed to find something. Secondly, I didn't know how the existing gym owners where I was working would take that news, because where I was looking was very close to their gym. And previous trainers had left and done a similar thing, and it had not gone down very well. So I was kind of concerned about that. I was kind of concerned about whether or not my existing client base would follow me, because, the gym, it was really big, really comforting. They had a creche, so I had a lot of mums. So there was a bit of a concern, but at the same time, I couldn't tell anyone until I'd actually secured the premises and started to set up, because I couldn't afford the news to get out. And then obviously the gym owners approached me when I wanted to do the right thing and tell them. So there was a lot of things that had to go right and fall into place. And, fast forward, I don't know what the time frame was, maybe 3 months or so, I found a place, and those that used to train in it will know. It was a bit of an older building, but it was a great starting point. It was affordable. It was open enough. I could get everything in there. I still needed more equipment, but it all came to fruition. And then over the course of 3 years I was there, I filled it out with great equipment. I actually got to a point where I had stuff stacked on stuff, because I was growing out of it, basically. But in terms of leaving the gym, leaving the big box gym, it actually went down really well, surprisingly. I told them I was leaving. I had a really good, honest conversation with them. I reiterated and made sure that they understood I wasn't opening up a commercial gym. I wasn't taking on members. I wasn't stealing clients or anything like that. All of my clients still needed a place to train outside of their session with me. So it ended reasonably well. So we packed up the home gym. We moved into that space, and the rest is history. We were there for 3 years. And then when that lease ran out, I had to basically ask myself, what's the next step? But through that 3 year period, the business grew. It grew a lot more. But the concern for me was, I was paying, what was I paying at EasyFit? About $250 a week rent, which is not a lot. But then when you go to a commercial space, what was I paying there? I think I was paying about $500 a week plus outgoings. So that's when you have to pay outgoings, it's electricity, it's power, it's insurance, it's waste disposal, it's all these extras that they charge you to cover all the utilities and everything. But then I've got insurance on top of that as well. So yeah, it all of a sudden my overheads, more than doubled. So that was a big chunk out of what I was doing. But again, it gave me a lot more flexibility. I didn't have to wear anything specific in terms of what I wore in the gym. I could be a lot more comfortable. I could put posters on the wall and play my own music. And, clients came to me because of that space. I got a lot more inquiry because people wanted to train in private. They were intimidated by a big gym. So things like that worked in my favor, but it took a little bit of time to settle into that space. I remember when I first set up in there, and I've put photos up of this before, because I came from my home gym in my home garage. The flooring was obviously set to that, and I had no spares. Even though I bought more, I sold them since then because I hadn't made the decision to move. So when I put all the flooring into this new space, which was effectively triple the size, I had all this bare concrete that I didn't have anything to cover it with. So obviously I had to basically move in over a weekend and then open up on the Monday, and it looked like a patchwork quilt. I had some flooring, I had concrete exposed, I had pieces of equipment all over the place. It was a mess. It looked like someone had thrown up a gym. But over time, we got more flooring. I got a sled track in there. I bought more equipment, and slowly but surely, I filled it out, and it worked out really well. And fortunately, it had an upstairs office too, and I was able to utilize that. One room was for a sauna. The other room, my wife uses a posing room. I also got a masseuse in from time to time. So, yeah, it turned out really well in the end. But once again, more learnings, more failings, more opportunity to grow, and ways to do things that, and allowed me a lot of flexibility as well, which was really cool. And I got to a point where I was actually able to pack out my Mondays to Thursdays and not work Friday mornings and work from home Friday mornings. Because, way back when I first started doing this, I completely overlooked the fact that I had kids, and I needed to be available for them as well, whether it be school runs and stuff like that. So I had to schedule my clients around school runs. And with my daughter in particular, taking her to school when she was with me on Mondays, picking her up on Fridays, I had to make sure that I was available for that. That was something I didn't want to miss. So, there are obviously time periods that I could have filled, and made more money, but I didn't. So when I got to this point in this shed, I was actually at a point where I was really well balanced. I'd stuck to my guns in terms of availability, and I was at a point where I could slowly scale back a little bit, and just give myself a little bit of time, which was really really enjoyable, to be honest. And I even do that today. Even though I work basically 5 days, Mondays I'm not in my shed, even though I get up at 4 a.m. because I've got check-ins with athletes. I'm doing this podcast on a Thursday afternoon, just after I've done all my check-ins, and then Fridays I'm not in the shed either. But again, I've got computer work to do, so it just it takes a bit of pressure off you as well. But I'm now 10 years in, and it's taken me a long time to get to this space. So going back, so a 3-year lease I was in that shed for. It was small. It was about 117 squares, I think, 119 squares, with an upstairs. But at the 2-year mark, at the 2 years and 6 months mark, I started to realise, and my wife was pointing out, look, you're starting to outgrow this. So you've kind of got to ask yourself, what's next? Do we go to a bigger space? Do we stick it in here? And the safe bet was to stay there because it was cheap rent. The landlord was really, really good. It was centrally located. It had good parking. There was nothing wrong with it at all. But then I had to ask myself, well, what's the next challenge for me? Do I want to be content? Do I want to be safe? Or do I want to challenge myself? So we started to look around at other sheds in that industrial precinct, in that area. There were some good ones, but it was such an old area that every shed that we looked at needed a lot of work done to it before you moved in. A lot of painting, a lot of repairs, lights, and I understand that the landlords will probably come to the party on all of that, but you still need to fit it out. Then we started looking. Actually, one of my clients was a builder, and he was doing a lot of building in the estate I'm in now. and he mentioned a shed that he was going to be constructed, and it was going to be finished when the lease of my old building ran out. So the timing was perfect. So he sent me the renderings and the drawings, and I had a look at it. Then he sent me all the costings, and I was kind of like, oh, it was. So from where I was in that 117 square meter shed to this one, which is 180, the rent and outgoings was double. And that's a big chunk of change, a lot. So I had to obviously figure that out. I had to work out, if I could do it, if it was viable. It was a big risk because we were moving effectively 20 minutes drive south into a new area that was still in development. So there was a lot to consider. But again, with my wife on my side, I made the call and we decided to take it. It was a risk. It was a massive risk. And once again, we moved into a shed that wasn't able to be filled out with the flooring. It wasn't able to be filled out with the equipment. It just looked ridiculous. But I knew, having experienced it in the previous shed, that over probably the first 6 to 12 months, I'd slowly but surely add to it, build it out, and it would be fine and look really, really good. And that's exactly what happened. So I took on, obviously, most of you know Kelly. I took her on as a trainer. Colleague, she's done really well as well in that space, and so that's obviously offset my rent a little bit, but it was still a big risk and a big challenge, because the area is so new. There wasn't a lot of tenancies around that were filled, so there wasn't a lot of business happening when I first moved in. The promise and growth of the area was still up for debate. What we were told is that it's going to expand and be massive, so obviously massive population growth and density. So I took a punt and signed a 5-year lease. Now, massive risk, because again, like I said earlier, every time I go away, I still have to pay the rent. Every time I have a long weekend, I still got to pay the rent. So that doesn't go away. And obviously most people are aware that I go to India multiple times a year. The most recent stint was 3 weeks, so I still have to pay rent over there while I was not earning any PT money. Fortunately, obviously, I've got a very successful online coaching business now that allows for me to do that, but it's still a very challenging time. So, look, without getting too deep into what I'm doing now, I guess the point of sharing this story was that over a 10-year period, I've only gotten to this point. Now, people walk into my gym now and they look up and they go, wow, this is impressive. It looks really good. You've got great equipment. It's great layout. It's open. It's airy. It's fresh. It's clean. But it took me a boot camp, a commercial gym, a garage gym, and then a dirty, grungy industrial shed gym to get to the gym I'm in now. It wasn't an instant success by any means. Look, some trainers might be able to go straight into that space if they've got the capital and the financial backing to do so. But the risk you run when you open up your own gym or studio, as is commonly known, is that you don't have any walk-in traffic. You don't have members walking in. Like, the beauty about the big box gym was that they had somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 members. So I had access to that database. I was able to contact new leads and new memberships, people who hadn't trained or been in the gym for a while. That was all accessible to me as a trainer there. So it enabled me to continually work on sales and leads. Whereas in my own gym, I don't have that. I don't have members. So I've got to market myself heavily. I've got to rely on referrals. I've got to build relationship with the community. It's a whole other box and dice. But upon reflection, would I change it? No, I wouldn't, because I believe that the struggles that we've gone through, not only as a business owner but as a family, have strengthened us. That's for sure. And obviously, now, without sounding too egotistical, my reputation within the industry is very strong. Most people have heard of my business and my brand, or me. And, now it's opened up doors in terms of judging on bodybuilding shows, speaking at seminars, running workshops at local gyms, because they have that level of trust. They know who I am. They know what my knowledge is. They know my experience, and they're able to offer me things like that, which is really cool. And it's it provides great opportunity for me to teach others. So, you may see the current success in terms of the gym space, or, the clients that I'm working with, but that's all come off the back of 10 years, and 10 years of hard work and 10 years of steep learnings as well. So, and again, it's why I've started to offer fitness business coaching. I've worked with some individuals already, had some great success, and this is why I want to do it, because there's a massive, massive gap between getting your Cert 3 and 4 of fitness and running a business, or understanding how to run a business that's specific to the fitness industry. You can get your Cert 3 and 4, then you can go on and get your nutrition qualifications or your strength and conditioning or whatever else you want to do. But enabling yourself to transfer that into a successful career is really challenging. There's so many things you've got to learn, and what to do and what not to do. So I believe someone who starts out now should be able to progress a lot quicker, simply due to support, knowledge, and obviously great available coaching. And then that should therefore turn around that statistic of 6 months. People, training's a great job, and yes, the market's saturated, but as I said to Kelly when she asked me about her potentially becoming a trainer, I said, look, there's plenty of trainers out there, but there's only a handful of good ones, because a lot of them don't take the time to continually develop themselves. A lot of them don't have the appropriate insurance or qualifications or knowledge or how to retain clients or how to get new ones. A lot of that stuff is lost on them. So if you're wanting to be a personal trainer or an online fitness coach or anything like that, do the groundwork, do the grinding, get in the trenches, because it's not an overnight success by no means. You're not going to start earning $2,000 a week by just turning up. You've got to work ridiculously hard. You've got to be prepared for long hours. You've got to be prepared for a lot of fatigue. You've got to be prepared for complaints. You've got to be prepared for arguments. But you've also got to be prepared for great times as well, which is what I can reflect on a lot, having gone as far as I have at this point. Look, I'll continue to do this until retirement. There's no two ways about it. This is the longest job I've had. 10 years I've been in this gig, and I haven't looked back. Obviously in the early days, I looked at other opportunities because I was unsure whether I could see this out. But now the only time I look for a job is if it transcends what I'm doing now. If there's a correlation between what I do now and an opportunity to progress in the industry I'm already in. Other than that, it's business as usual for me. So yeah, it's pretty exciting as to what the future holds. And that's a really good thing, because 10 years on, if you're still excited about the future, it means you're in a really good space and you're enjoying what you're doing. So I think I'll finish up there. I think I've covered everything. But yeah, from humble beginnings in that park, running boot camps for 2 or 3 or 4 people in the cold, in the wet, in the dark, to now obviously having a fantastic facility, plenty of great clients and that's the other thing too. Clients will stick around if you provide them with a quality service. I've got clients who I've had for 8 years. 8 years. Some for 6, some for 5, some for 4. They're awesome. I know every part of their life, not intimate details, but I know about their family. I know about their kids. I know about their jobs. And from that builds a community, because then, like this morning as an example, or yesterday, I was talking to one of my long-term clients. Her son has a lawn mowing business and he's looking for staff. And I mentioned my young fella's looking for work. So straight away, there's a connection there. So things like that wouldn't happen if you didn't have a great relationship with your client. So that's something that every trainer can learn from. Build that relationship out early, make sure that there's a level of trust, and keep that communication open. Be honest, be genuine, and you can't go wrong. So I'll finish up there, but thank you once again for listening. I thought it was a great opportunity to share my story a little bit more after celebrating 10 years in the industry. I'm very excited to celebrate another 10 years in 10 years' time. But for now, it's back to the grindstone, back to check-ins, and back to what I do best, and that is coaching people for greater health and fitness. So thank you once again. I really do appreciate it. If you've enjoyed this story, please screenshot, share it on your stories. Tag myself at Paul's Body Engineering. If you've got anyone that you know that's working in the fitness industry, share this or is wanting to potentially enter the fitness industry, and doesn't necessarily have to be a personal trainer. Health, fitness, wellness, we're all relatively similar in how we operate a business and how we have to market and sell ourselves. So share it to them. They might get something out of it that they can learn from, or if anyone is interested in fitness business coaching, please let me know because I'll be more than happy to help you out. If you're interested in any of my other coaching services, please jump on paulsbodyengineering.com or the link in the bio of my Instagram page, or just send me a DM or an email, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. But for now, I'm going to wind up, have a breather, and then get back into my work. So thank you once again. And as I say to every client, every single day, have a great day.